On this Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday here at UUCA, we remember this great man as we listen to his resonant voice, how his words at the start of his sermon entitled "The Drum Major Instinct" slowly and precisely fall and are driven home. I don't know if he ever called himself a universalist, but he surely was one. He believed that from birth, every human being is set upon a path instinctively aiming towards greatness. There is, first of all, having in mind the greatest good that one can imagine. And then, second of all, there is the reaching out for it in action. That is what we are hardwired for from birth. Therefore, what matters above all is how we imagine the greater good. Beings that are primed by God or nature to aim for what is best, if the instinct is not developed and educated, they can achieve the worst. History has seen Dr. King. History has also seen King's terrible contemporaries, J. Edgar Hoover, Richard Nixon. No one falls into evil and fails to do well because they intentionally wish to. The difference maker is unwisdom. The difference maker is ignorance, which is not just intellectual ignorance, but emotional and spiritual as well. And it causes a person to imagine a good that is way too small. And when an image of the good is way too small, well, the love you have to show to the world, that is way too small as well. That is the basic thrust of the Mark chapter 10 story that Dr. King recounts. One day, James and John, they come up to Jesus. They announce their ambition to sit at his side when he is in his glory. And clearly, this is how they imagine their greatest good. They truly and honestly believe that this is their greatest good. But a wish can be too small, which is why Jesus responds by saying, "Whosoever will be great among you, you shall be a servant. And whosoever of you will be chiefest shall be servant of all." Jesus is loving the hell out of their minds, right? Loving the hell out of their minds. If hell can be understood in the distinctively universalist sense, as a this world sort of thing, and the ultimate result of misunderstanding of what is truly good. As for Jesus' vision of greatness and Dr. King's, well, universalist as well. Greatness is, we'll build a land where we bind up the broken. Greatness is, we'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. That's greatness. Later on in his sermon, Dr. King says this: everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve, he says. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato or Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know about Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. And you can be that servant. That is what he said. That is the biggest image of good that is out there. And that biggest image of good, it translates to the biggest love that can be. Finding a way to serve. This day we honor Dr. King's service and the beautiful example of his life. But it shines as a bright star in the dark depths of the unwisdom that is everywhere And as a result, the pitifully small images of the good that are also everywhere. Dr. King spends almost 2/3 of his sermon, it took 40 minutes to preach, by the way. He spends almost 2/3 of that sermon counting the ways of ignorance and their consequences. He is preaching at Ebenezer Baptist Church, we know that, and in his sermon, he is not naming names, but you have to believe he is calling out some things that he is seeing in his congregation. He's calling them out because he loves his people, and he wants them to try harder and to live more fully into what they are capable of as children of God. So he speaks to how advertisers appeal to people's vanity, make us dissatisfied with who we are and what we have. And very soon, we find ourselves living way beyond our means. He speaks to that, then he goes ahead and speaks to how people can become boastful, how people can name drop to demonstrate their specialness. And then he goes on to talk about how people can push others down to push themselves up. And then he explicitly calls out churches that get caught up in snobbery and on how many doctors are in the community, how many lawyers, how many professors, and other high-class people that they have as members. And Dr. King says, when the church is true to its nature, it says, whosoever will, let him come. And it is not supposed to satisfy the perverted uses of the drum major instinct. It's the one place where everybody should be the same. That's what he says. Now note especially that phrase, perverted uses of the drum major instinct. This instinct is fundamentally good, but it has gotten lost in thickets of unwisdom, of ignorance. And then his sermon pivots from things that he might be seeing in his congregation to things he is seeing in the larger world that are absolutely disturbing. He says, need for some people to feel superior, a need that some people have to feel that they are first and to feel that their white skin ordains them to be first. That's the horror of racism. And then he goes on to talk about another horror, the struggle between the nations, as he puts it. Nations, he says, caught up with the drum major instinct. I must be first. I must be supreme. This sermon could absolutely be preached today. Right? The drum major instinct in us, God or nature, has put us on a path of seeking out greatness, but greatness in intent can turn into horror in action. If unwisdom is not educated out of us, there truly will be hell to pay. There truly will be. From Dr. King's sermon, we Universalists have our marching orders to humbly acknowledge the human predicament of pervasive ignorance, including double ignorance, which is times when you don't know that you don't know. To commit to a lifelong journey of learning and growth, and you accept the fact that the experience of learning is sometimes going to feel like being blindsided. Because how do you know that you don't know that you don't know? And you know what? You keep on showing up. Even after being blindsided, you keep on showing up. Never feels good, but there you go. You keep on showing up. And then this, to be thoroughly convinced that this is not a journey of solitude, but one lived in community, because, once again, how else can you come to know that you don't know that you don't know? It has to be someone else. You can't read it in a book. And this, to have compassion for ourselves as flawed human beings. And therefore, we can extend that compassion to our fellow sinners. You know, I just cannot be obnoxious in pointing out another person's flaw when I got 3 fingers pointing right back at me. Because we spill not only milk, writes poet Nancy Schaefer, knocking it over with an elbow when we reach to wipe a small face, but also spill seed on soil we thought was fertile, but it's not. And also spill whole lives, and only later see in the fading light how much is gone, and we didn't intend it. Because we tear not only cloth, thinking to find a true edge, but we only make a hole, but also tear friendships as we grow, and whole mountainsides, because we are so many, and we want to live right where the black oaks lived once, very quietly and still. Because we forget not only what we were doing in the kitchen and have to go back to the room that we were at before to remember why it was we left, but also forget entire lexicons of joy and how we lost ourselves for hours, yet all that time were clearly found and held. And also forget the hungry who are not at our table. Because we are imperfect and love so much that we will never have enough days. We need the gift of starting over, of beginning again. Just this constant good, this saving